Ubisoft continues to be the punching bag of the industry because they can't seem to stop shooting themselves in the foot. Now, the biggest news story is one that if you follow the channel you probably already heard about, which is the fact that Assassin's Creed Shadows does still have intended single-player battle passes in it. Now, this story is a little bit more complicated than it seems on the surface, but still, it's what we expected. But if it were only that, no, because if I take my eyes off of Ubisoft for a week, we have like 20 news stories. So, also, they're being sued twice. There's a new director for Star Wars Outlaws to try and salvage that game. They lost and now hired a new CPO, or Chief People Officer, which is in charge of people. They released an NFT game, like an actual NFT game, not an open beta or something like that, an actual game based off of NFTs, and Marc, Alexis, Cote had some stuff to say about Assassin's Creed and all of the toxic people complaining about Shadows. So there is quite a lot to get through. I'm gonna try my best and try and speedrun through a lot of this while not leaving out the details. It's actually a kind of big deal because we need to remind Ubisoft that they answer to us, to gamers, that they need to stop with this garbage. It's getting really embarrassing. So anyways, hi, I'm Mug, and if you're new here, welcome, and if you're not new here, welcome back. It's nice to see you. Remember to leave a like if you can, if you do enjoy the video. That helps the video reach farther. Let's get into it. So let's start off with Ubisoft undoing one of the very few pieces of good news that they had done. They showed just a little bit of atonement for their sins when they delayed Assassin's Creed Shadows, said there wouldn't be an early access period, no season pass, that the things that were included in that season pass would be free with the game, that sort of stuff, releasing day one on Steam, basically trying to save face, trying to pretend that they care about the customer again, since the company is failing, just directly failing. Now, I made a video a little bit ago talking about Assassin's Creed Infinity, and that's going to be linked in the description below in case you want more details about it. But the important thing is that it's a hub for all of the new Assassin's Creed stuff that also houses the new modern day story. Now, they said that Assassin's Creed Shadows wouldn't have a season pass because don't worry, that's technically part of the Assassin's Creed Animus hub, which is the new name for it. So the idea is that there is a season pass for the Animus hub, and that season pass gives you stuff for the Assassin's Creediverse that they intend to keep building up after launching the hub with Assassin's Creed Shadows. So if you thought Ubisoft was actually going to change, that they were done with their ways, oh, think again. Now, this is kind of true and kind of untrue. So there is actually a good part about this. There is a silver lining. They have confirmed that that season pass and the extra missions and the extra content within the Animus hub are going to be free. After the leak, after the data mine, a Ubisoft employee came out and said so. The problem is that these free season passes are there to also give you a little bit of the premium currency that they want you to use on cosmetics and potentially, I would guess, some extra gameplay features or stuff down the line, including the fact that maybe they are monetizing some of the stuff regarding base building in Assassin's Creed Shadows. Like, please make no mistake, this is still Ubisoft and they're still going to be doing Ubisoft things. So there is still a premium currency to purchase things like we've seen in previous Assassin's Creed games so far, and they still ultimately want you to spend money on the Animus hub. The idea is that later it's all going to integrate with the 17 different Assassin's Creed games that they have planned. I'm exaggerating, I believe it's 10. But while they're in this ditch that they have just dug out for themselves, they need a little bit of goodwill, so they're going to camouflage it behind some free stuff. Now, you need to remember, originally, none of that was planned to be free. The season pass for Assassin's Creed Shadows was not going to be free. This Animus hub stuff was definitely not intended to be free. And that means that a lot of the stuff that they have designed for this game was thought up with that intention of a treadmill of content to keep people playing, so that the more time you spend on it, the more you're willing to spend real money on stuff, because this is your one hobby. All you do apparently is play Assassin's Creed games within the Animus hub. That is their plan. And just because they're moving some of that paid stuff to be free doesn't mean that it already harmed the design of the game to be this money-sucking machine. And it doesn't mean that they're not going to turn it into that later on more egregiously, because remember, there is still microtransactions and a own specific currency that you can spend within Assassin's Creed Animus Hub. It's not looking good. It's not looking good. It's really that simple. But wait, because before that, this video has a sponsor that I am genuinely really excited about. It's called Dimensionals. And Dimensionals is a roguelite deck builder. You could think of something like Slay the Spire, but with a couple of very interesting twists and a Saturday morning cartoon aesthetic that I think really pops. What really sets it apart is the fact that it's a 3-hero party system that you go on in each run, and you can unlock a ton of the different heroes. Each of them come with their own passives, and they can be upgraded and improved as you keep playing. And that's where a lot of the creativity comes in. The combinations of different heroes you can put together, how they can interact, and all of the skills that you can find and equip leads to my favorite part of these games, which is finding a completely ridiculous build that annihilates everything, being that much more expressive when you have those party mechanics in it. This is a game with a ton of love and care put into a lot of the details and everything that you would expect from a roguelite deck builder, but with its own original touch. And I always play games before I take them on as a sponsor so that I can tell you genuinely, which I think matters, that it's really good. As a person who really likes this genre, it's a ton of fun, and I think that you should check it out using the link in the description. It's coming out in early access on November 17th, and I know some of you don't like early access games, but at the very least, you should wishlist it, because I'm really excited to see where this goes. Those party mechanics that build freedom, those interactions, and yes, the aesthetic, the game I personally think looks really cool, has got it on my radar since I played it in a Next Fest a while back. So make sure to check it out, and a huge thanks to them for sponsoring the video, and hopefully I just helped you find a new game for you to enjoy. And now, back to the video. Okay, so now let's talk about the lawsuits. Ubisoft is actually being sued in 2 different lawsuits. The first one is a class action over alleged customer data sharing with Meta, that they did not disclose that the information that you were giving Ubisoft they were going to share with Meta, also known as Facebook. So that must be something that they're worried about, and from what I've read, it's pretty sure that that's what happened. The other one is actually very important overall because Ubisoft is being sued by 2 California gamers over The Crew. Now, I'm not a legal expert, and the person I'm going to link down below, which is Ross over at Accursed Farms, in case you want to know more about this, is also not a lawyer, but he is very invested and the creator of the Stop Killing Games movement. So here, Ubisoft is being sued over false advertisement of The Crew, the idea that it's a game that they just took offline. It's very important in the conversation regarding games preservation. So not only is the Stop Killing Games movement something that's going on, now this is also happening in the United States, which originally was not one of the plans of attack, because it seems like it's really hard to do that in the States. So it's nice that these 2 people have taken up the mantle and decided to fight this fight here in the US. We're gonna keep a close eye on this because game preservation is important. Star Wars Outlaws, which is the catalyst for this change in Ubisoft, their whole like, we're gonna not do season passes, but actually we are type of stuff, because of the colossal flop that it was, now has a new creative director. Drew Reckner is taking over and making sure that the game progresses accordingly with its season pass system. But it seems like the plan is a bit more transformative, because Drew says that there's 3 key areas that they need to improve in the game to make it better. And that's that they are going to revamp the combat system, the stealth system, and the controls. In other words, the game. They're revamping most of the game, at least the part where you play it. So I guess that what we're gonna still have is the same missions and layouts and the general, world. I guess I should say worlds. And Drew cites a ton of different things. He wants to add depth and excitement to the combat experience and reward tactics and precision, which sure. He also wants to reward stealth. He wants to do that by improving readability and consistency, but also providing choice in how you approach every encounter, which there's plenty of choice in the game. It's just that all of the choices are equally boring and unsatisfying. Remember, this Ubisoft made Splinter Cell. Like, how many times do I need to say that again? And the third one is improving the reliability of cover, increasing the responsiveness of climbing and crouching, and generally improving the consistency of the controls overall. I personally didn't have too much of an issue with this part of the game. It was weird and janky in a way that felt very Ubisoft predictable, but hey, if they want to try and salvage this, that's great. So Drew is taking over Star Wars Outlaws, and the other person, the person who was previously the director, which is Julian Garrity, has now transitioned to be the game director on The Division 3. So congratulations to all you Division fans. I'm sure that you're really excited for what the game director behind Star Wars Outlaws is gonna do with The Division 3. Now, an actual really big shakeup that I don't think would be worth like talking about in a video if it already didn't contain 50 things already, but the important thing is that we've talked a lot about Ubisoft and the culture there and the problems they've been having. They've had strikes from employees complaining about remote work, about how they went from the remote work of the pandemic now to forcing everybody back into the office, and that's kind of ruining a lot of people's lives. Employees are not happy with the conditions. There's been allegations of very toxic work conditions within Ubisoft for many, many years now, as well as ongoing rumors of stuff like the Assassin's Creed Shadows team suffering from the very popular nowadays toxic positivity. All of that is really important because Ubisoft has a new Chief People Officer, which is basically HR. A Chief People Officer oversees the human resources side as well as performance management, culture building, and employee engagement. A lot of the problems that we speculate about in modern games and that I'm going to try and prove is actually true in some upcoming videos. They have this new person, Sebastian Freudefond, I suppose. Sebastian Freudefond. If you're French, let me know how terrible that was in the comments. I'm sorry, I'm doing my best. And Sebastian is taking over for Annika Grant, which left in November of 2023. We're gonna see if he can do anything within human resources and within the overall culture of Ubisoft, because it seems like it's not very good. And I imagine that with the company very publicly kind of folding over as its stock crumbles, as people's opinion of it is just as worse as possible, the only good game that they've released in a while being the Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, that team got dispersed into other teams kind of as a punishment for making a good game. It's a whole weird thing. I imagine that most employees are not very happy with how things are going on right now over there. And hopefully this changes things around or is potentially something positive for the company. Will it be? I doubt it. But hey, I like to be optimistic where I can, especially when it comes to the ton of employees who work there that just want to make good games and have nothing to do with the reasons the company is going under. Final little bit of information, very interesting information. They released an NFT game. For those of you who don't know, I'm also going to leave a link in the description below to a NFT game YouTuber, which is a thing, Jean, which is really, he made a really good video about their new game, Champions Tactics. John discovered in his time that the game is basically unplayable. It seems that a malicious player found a way to win every match before the match even begins. And also, he's the only person you can ever get matched against. Now, we would assume that it's because he's manipulating something in the back end, but it is also potentially because he's the only other person playing. That is a joke. There's probably more people playing, but still, not only did they launch a blockchain NFT game that nobody wanted and that nobody likes, but it's also broken. Ooh, what a couple of weeks for Ubisoft, huh? And finally, I want to tackle something that I feel like a lot of people who cover this sort of news did not want to tackle. I would say mostly because Marc Alexis Cote, the director of Assassin's Creed, gave a speech. This was at a BAFTA event which Eurogamer attended and then transcribed the things that he said. The interesting thing, and the reason I think people aren't covering it, is because he's right on some things, but in my opinion, he's very wrong on some others. He's been very laudably applauded by a lot of traditional games media because he's standing up against the bullying online, but it's still just presenting an us versus them argument that furthers nothing. This article by PC Gamer specifically says that a lot of people are just memeing on the game and outrage tourism because there's a black character in it, which, let me be clear, I'm sure that some people out there are racist. I don't think that's going to come as a surprise to anybody. But to also, this is the same thing that they do to us all the damn time. They pretend that there isn't anyone with real concerns, that there's nobody here that actually has more legitimate complaints about issues, and they reduce it to the most extreme example and pretend everybody is that example. Cote spoke up about how Yasuke has sparked controversy, but that the team has even faced backlash because of the inclusion of Naue just because she's a woman. Which, let me make this clear, if I've seen people talking about Naue, it really hasn't been that much in a negative light. Now, I'm sure that these things exist, once again, but most of what I've seen is people happy that there's a dedicated stealth character and they can ignore Yasuke. So really, I just want to highlight some of the problems with portraying this. So Cote says, but just as Yasuke's presence in Japanese history is fact, which it is, the way that they're representing it may be not so true for a game that consistently during its marketing said that they were being very careful with historical accuracy. Sorry, let me get back on track. So too are the stories of women who defied societal expectations and took up arms in times of conflict. So while both Naue and Yasuke's stories are works of historical fiction, they reflect the collision of different worlds, cultures, and roles, and their inclusion is precisely the kind of narrative that Assassin's Creed seeks to tell, one that reflects the complexity and interconnectedness of our shared history. And all of that sounds really cool, especially the idea of women, which would normally not be on the front lines, would not be fighting, having to take up arms due to an extreme cause, due to crisis in the nation. And I just don't think that you're going to portray that well. I just really don't think that you're going to portray that in society well, just as I don't think you're going to portray the impact of a black man and the historical records we have of Yasuke in Japan, considering that he suffered from racism a ton. It kind of makes sense. He was the first black man that a ton of people saw. And I don't trust Ubisoft in actually representing that in the game, of doing good by Yasuke's story. And even though Naue is completely fictional, I also don't trust them anymore to make that story compelling in the way that it should be, which is somebody rising up against the odds and rising up against society and its expectations to do something truly badass. I would love for them to prove me wrong. He also goes on to speak about the fact that there is a very big challenge today in distinguishing between genuine feedback and attacks driven by intolerance, and that affects a lot of the team. It makes them sad because they're harassed online all of the time, I guess. That's what they're trying to portray here. When the work they pour their hearts into is twisted into a symbol of division, it's not just disheartening, it can be devastating. So let me tell you something, do your job. How about you just do your job? I don't understand why we need to throw a pity party for people. You think you're special. It's 2024. It doesn't matter what opinion you have on the internet. A ton of people are going to hate you for it. I would know. I find it hard to believe that there are all of these employees of the literal thousands working on Shadows that are consistently being harassed online. If anything, there's a bunch of videos generally talking about the game. There's a bunch of articles defending it and against it, and they are choosing to interact with it in a way that is harmful to their psyche. So, they could just stop and do their job. And when it comes to distinguishing between genuine feedback and a bunch of people just being mad because there's a black guy in the game, how about you have a team that does that? That's the whole point. Your entire existence is to make video games for people to enjoy. And if a very large amount of people do not like what you are presenting them, there's got to be some truth to it, and you need to have professionals that are there to discern that. That would be doing your job. Crying about it, that there's people out there that don't have genuine feedback, is just you covering your ass while trying to say that people so mean, they're so mean to us. Ugh. And I'm gonna leave the link down below. It's gonna be down there if you want to read through it. I do think there are nuggets of truth here. I do think that there are cases of people being very extreme online. He focuses down on the idea that All of this is bad. What is good is inclusiveness and making these games and giving all of these different perspectives and pushing the medium forward. And I'm just going to say, I strongly disagree with the idea that these multicultural perspectives that they are trying to present are pushing the medium forward. I will believe that they are virtue signaling. I will believe that they are trying to pander to people by the way that they've done it up, dressed it up, and the cultural insensitivity that they've shown towards Japan in a lot of their marketing. There are absolutely fantastic stories that you can tell by taking advantage of a diverse culture of different points of view. I personally think Yasuke could be an excellent protagonist if he's handled well, if his story is told genuinely, because it is a fascinating story that has led to him being represented so many times, including by Japanese people. I just don't believe that Ubisoft has the intention of doing that. They're going to create a different fictional character around Yasuke, and now it is completely fictional, to tell the story that they want to tell. Not one that's good because it simply is, but that at the core has the idea that people didn't like it because there's a black dude, but look at us, we're so brave, we did it anyways. And I don't think that benefits the game in the end, and when it comes to Ubisoft in total, it doesn't benefit consumers. That was a pretty big speedrun of a lot of Ubisoft news, and I hope that you enjoyed the video. I hope you had a great time, and if you did, remember to hit the like button. That helps the video out. A huge thanks to my patrons up on the $1 patron wall, which support everything I do here on the channel, including crazy stuff. I recently played through a Piglet's Big Game, the viral horror game. If you're here all the way at the end of this video, you'll probably like that one. Go show it some love. But yeah, the people on the patron wall, thank you so much. And if you're interested in supporting, it's just $1, and the link is also in the description. Pretty packed description this time around. Thank you all for watching. Also, check out Dimensionals. I don't have to say this. I'm just saying it because I actually did put like 3.5 hours, 4 hours into the demo of the game because I really liked it. So when they approached for that, I was like, yeah, it's a good game. I think people are going to like it. So check it out. Completely unsponsored statement there. It's good. And as always, I will see you again very soon.